A little while ago, I uploaded a video talking about the most overrated Nintendo games where I discussed your takes on Twitter on what is the most overrated Nintendo game. And well, since y'all seem to really like that video, we're back at it again today, but talking about the most underrated Nintendo games. Considering the reception of these videos have been pretty strong lately, I'm thinking about making this Twitter discussion video format into a series, so I'm gonna be asking more questions over on twitter.com. So if you want a chance to be in a future video like this, make sure to go follow my Twitter, the link's in the description. But anyway, on to take number 1. Super Mario Sunshine is overhated. It's the worst 3D Mario game, but that doesn't mean it's not a banger. There's definitely frustrating aspects to the game, but the heights of the game make it worth it in the end. 8 out of 10, best annoying game ever made. Why did I make that into a southern accent? What the f? This very much isn't a crazy take. It's not even a take that I can even necessarily disagree with. I mean, whenever I think of underrated Nintendo games, usually Super Mario Sunshine comes to mind. I mean, it's definitely the game people like to bring up the most whenever talking about this conversation. Super Mario Sunshine was in fact the most replies that I got for a single game, but I also feel like the reasons why people dislike the game are very valid. Now sure, some of those complaints can just equate to you being bad, but also the game is just kinda unpolished. I don't know how they screwed up Mario's controls so badly, but he just controls so poorly without FLUDD, it's just actually terrible. Not to mention that the 100% completion process of the game is just really not fun. You can 100% games like Mario Odyssey, Mario Galaxy, and Mario 3D World with such ease, but when it comes to Mario Sunshine, you're gonna want to start bashing your head into a wall. Mario Sunshine is still a very fun game, but I can understand why it's not every Mario fan's cup of tea. I would definitely rather go play Mario Galaxy 3D World or hell, even any 3D Mario game over Sunshine. The best part of the game bar none is definitely the aesthetic of the game itself. That being Isle Delfino, but yeah, I mean, I can see why people would think it's underrated. Whenever I think of underrated Nintendo games, that's the first thing that come to mind. But yeah, I mean, it's not the spiciest take, but it's totally something I can get behind. Kid Icarus Uprising. Literally everyone who complains about the controls hasn't even played the game, lol. Get on the sequel/remake, Nintendo. It's such a shame that Kid Icarus Uprising was made specifically for the 3DS, otherwise I guarantee you we would have probably seen it on the Switch already. The controls are absolutely tailor-made for that console, and I think it'd be very difficult to bring it over here for more people to enjoy, because I feel like if they did bring it over here, 1, there would be a lot of different issues present, but 2, a ton of more people would get into that series. A series that only consists of 3 games. Whoopee. There's a lot of charm and personality within Kid Icarus Uprising that just makes me want to play the game for myself, but I can't because the game is butt-ass expensive. I feel like a sequel to the game would be far more warranted than a remake of the original Uprising, as Uprising was made specifically for the 3DS, so the controls are fine-tuned around that console. If Nintendo were to hypothetically remake the game, it would have to be more like a reimagining similar to Final Fantasy VII Remake or Resident Evil 4. That's just how different the gameplay would need to be for the game to properly run on the system. The game is visually stunning, so I'm not trying to turn down a remake opportunity, but I probably would rather see a sequel furthering the characters and the world and the story and whatnot rather than rehashing an old game that a lot of people have already played and experienced. Again, not the spiciest take for an underrated game, but still something I definitely agree with. Fire Emblem Three Houses is just as good as Breath of the Wild, maybe even better. First of all, thank you for the response. Second of all, no! I mean, look, don't get me wrong, I love Fire Emblem, let alone Three Houses, but there's no way it's competing with Breath of the Wild. Not to mention those two are very different games, so it's a little hard to compare them, saying they're on par with one another, maybe even better so. It's more of what you prefer, I guess, in that kind of sense. It's an acquired taste, Fire Emblem especially. Now, like I said, I love Fire Emblem, and I'd love to make the case that this is an underrated series, especially considering about all the flack it gets from Nintendo fans in general. A lot of Nintendo fans refuse to give this series a chance just because all these characters are in Smash, and yeah, I'll agree, there's a lot of these characters, but damn, Fire Emblem is so good. Although, if I were to talk about a specific Fire Emblem game to be underrated, I would not say Three Houses. While Fire Emblem Three Houses is a very good game and got a lot of people, myself included, introduced into the franchise, I would honestly make the case that this game is actually overrated instead of underrated. This game gets too much praise, and to be honest, it split the fan base in half between Three Houses fans and actual Fire Emblem fans. Now, if you're a fan of Three Houses, that doesn't mean you're not a Fire Emblem fan. It's just that if you've only played Three Houses, I would consider you a Three Houses fan, because Three Houses is one of the most very different games compared to other Fire Emblems. The game works a lot like Persona 5, as everything's on a calendar-based system where certain events happen on certain days, and at the end of every month you have a mission that you have to be ready for no matter what. It's a very fun game, don't get me wrong. I absolutely love the gameplay and story. The story most of all, actually. The Blue Lion story is just... whew, it's so good, and the characters are amazing. You know those memes where they look at Ryan Gosling and Patrick Bateman, they're like, oh my god, he's just like me. Yeah, I had my very first experience with that in this game with Raphael. He is literally me, and I fucking love him for it. Like I said, it's a very good game, but I kind of consider it overrated. Now, if you do want an underrated Fire Emblem game, I would actually heavily guide you towards Fire Emblem Engage. This game got so much flack upon release for absolutely no reason. I can only assume it's because Three Houses fans played this game, which is way more like a more traditional Fire Emblem, like, wow, this isn't like Three Houses. I don't like it. Now, don't get me wrong, press the LR button to continue. They look awful. I hate their designs. They're kind of ugly to look at, but otherwise, everything in this game is just kind of better. Okay, actually, scratch that. The story sucks in this game. But other than that, the gameplay is just superior and more refined than Three Houses, at least in my opinion. The way I see it is when somebody asks me, it's like, hey, I want to get into Fire Emblem, which game should I play? I'll say, well, if you want a better story, I definitely recommend Three Houses, but if you're more on the gameplay side, I definitely recommend Engage. Both games are very different from one another despite being in the very same franchise, so I can understand why somebody would find Three Houses better or why somebody would find Engage better. There's multiple pros and cons that make the game both better and worse from one another, so yeah, both are pretty overrated and underrated. You know what? Very underrated. Just go play Fire Emblem in general. That's the message. That's the takeaway from this video. Just go play Fire Emblem. Oh, hey, what's this? Bar for bar, parentheses, Super Paper Mario, word for word, Super Paper Mario.
Hey man, you stole my whole bar, and you stole my whole flow, so I'm gonna just stop you right there. I'm gonna talk about Paper Mario for a second. Paper Mario, the beloved RPG created by Intelligent Systems and Nintendo, was a spiritual successor to Super Mario RPG on the SNES. As it was originally going to be a sequel to Super Mario RPG, Square Enix stepped in and was like, nah, you can't do that. No. So they decided to make their own game called Mario Story, renamed in the US as Paper Mario, which meant that Thousand Year Door is technically the first Paper Mario game in the East. Fun fact for you. Thousand Year Door, it perfects everything about Paper Mario. It's such a good game. It has its own issues that I'm not even going to bother with. Don't play Sticker Star. Color Splash and Origami King are subjective. But here's the best thing that I could say. Super Paper Mario. Alright, end the thing. We don't even not talk about it anymore. It's a very, very controversial game. A lot of people can agree that the story is top-notch, 10 out of 10, one of the greatest video games stories of all time. But everyone can agree on the gameplay. I feel like the story actually improves the gameplay. It makes you engaged. You want to go see what happens next in the story, which is something a video game should most definitely do. If you're engaged in the gameplay, not because it's a fun game, but because you're engaged into seeing what happens next, that's when a video game succeeds at everything. The gameplay itself isn't the most engaging thing in the world. It has this cool flip 3D, turn into 3D thingamajig that a lot of video games, I'm surprised, don't actually steal from. And while you play as other characters in other Paper Mario games in between chapters, this game actually makes you play as other characters to unlock certain things. Can't reach this? Oh, you play as Princess Peach. You can't destroy this wall? You play as Bowser. Luigi's here too. Super Paper Mario is the only game that gets me engaged solely because of the story too. I could just gush about the story and that could be the end of it. Super Paper Mario is like Earl Grey tea. A lot of people don't really like Earl Grey tea, and that's okay. You know, you get the little ting and you're like, yeah, that's all right. But for me personally, I love Earl Grey tea. I love Earl Grey tea. Thank you for having me. I know I just barged my way into here, but you know, when I hear the words Super Paper and Mario, I just gotta be on the scene. So make sure to subscribe to BigSleeter. That's the only YouTube channel you actually subscribe to. If you really like funny Sonic videos with a wise talking cat, then you're gonna love my YouTube channel. Bye!
What the hell was all that about? Anyway. To cap out the end of the video, I'm going to share my opinions on what I think is the most underrated Nintendo game. No, not you, my sweet child. Your time will come soon enough. That's better. Not only is the Wario Land series an amazing platformer, it is just one of the greatest series of platformers of all time. Wario Land 4 and Shake It especially carry this formula to its absolute limits. Close to the time that Wario Land Shake It came out for the Wii, we also got New Super Mario Bros. On the DS, and just the difference between these two in quality is just night and day. Wario's treasure hunting adventures are absolutely timeless. While we're still getting games like Super Mario Wonder, I'm not trying to dunk on this game before it's even out, but I'm just saying if there was a Wario Land game, it would look 10 times more appealing than Mario Wonder does. That's not to say Mario Wonder looks bad in the slightest, no. It's just usually whenever I'm playing a 2D Mario game like the New Super Mario Bros. Or what I assume later on to be Mario Wonder, it's just a game where I can turn off my brain and yeah, I'll have a good time. But with Wario Land, it's just different. There's more style, more charm, more edge to these games than any Mario game ever could. Not to mention that all the sprites in Wario Land Shake It were hand-drawn. The music is more memorable, the gameplay is faster paced, it's just overall a better time in my opinion. Now of course I just have a natural bias towards Wario as a character over Mario, but still, Wario Land is just one of those series that you'll actually have to play for yourself to fully understand. It's been so long since we've gotten a Wario Land game that upon the announcement of a new Wario Ware actually being the sequel to my favorite Wario Ware, it made me mad because it wasn't a Wario Land game. We already have a Wario Ware on the Switch. Give us a Wario Land game, please! I mean, to be fair, Pizza Tower came out this year and it's very Wario Land influenced, and that's why I love the game so much, not for the Pepino, Ohio, Riz, oh Jesus, I'm so sorry. But yeah, that's gonna do it for today's underrated Nintendo games video, but I have to ask you, the YouTube viewer, what is your most underrated Nintendo game? Make sure to let me know down in the comments below, and while you're at it, make sure to slap that like button in the face, and subscribe to the channel. But yeah, I'll see you all in the next video.
The Mega Man Star Force series, while not being made by Nintendo, is one of the most underrated series of games to come.